Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So I really want to get into the nitty gritty of Doomfist. I want to know how much damage that he does, and I want to let you guys know as well what the abilities do what, whether there's some things to bear in mind when using him to get the most out of him. Let's go over the passive first, as that's a little bit awkward to explain. So the passive is the best defense. It basically boils down to the more damage you do, the more shields you get back to help you in those situations where you're diving into the backline and you need a little bit of health. All abilities, apart from the primary fire, which is the hand cannon, generate 30 shield each time you use these abilities. However, if you hit multiple enemies with, say, the uppercut, you get 30 per enemy that you hit. And this stacks all the way up until 400 health. Unless you use the ultimate, hit multiple targets, then it has an overflow. It could go as high as sort of 450 and then come all the way down. But other than that, it hard caps at 400 and you get 30 charge no matter what ability you're using and how fully charged that ability is. Let's go over hand cannon. As I mentioned, this is the one ability that doesn't generate any shield. It does 66 damage, non-headshot, meaning that it does 11 damage per pellet as there's 6 pellets in the fire. And you have 4 shots and it automatically reloads over time, which you see on screen right in front of you. Now let's go over uppercut. This is the ability where you knock them high into the air. This generates 50 damage onto the enemy, but doesn't act as a form of interrupt. So if the enemy is high nooning, whole hogging, it doesn't do anything there. Slam's damage numbers were a little bit iffy. They did about 47 on average, so around 50 to estimate. Again, still gives 30 shield. Shocks the enemy. I think it slows them, but it doesn't interrupt them again. So don't use any of those abilities to try and interrupt an attack that's coming in. Now let's go over the right click, which is very interesting. Now, seeing as we just mentioned interrupts, this is the one ability that actually stuns targets, meaning that if you right click an enemy, no matter how fully charged right click is, it will stun the target. It even stuns a charging Reinhardt. So this is a chargeable ability, and the longer that you hold the charge, the more damage that it does. There's no like tier system of like Zenyatta, you hold it until you get a certain amount of orbs before you fire them. If you hold the attack for 1 second over 0.5 seconds, the 1 second attack does more damage. If you just instantly sort of tier 1 right click, immediately just press the button, it does about 50 damage and it goes up to 100 with a fully charged one. You'll know when it's fully charged as well. But the interesting thing to note here is that if you look on the website or press F1 whilst you're in game playing Doomfist, it says that the rocket punch does additional damage if the enemy impacts a wall. What they failed to mention was it does a lot of damage if it impacts a wall. So you definitely want to bear this in mind. How much damage? Well, remember when I said just the instant right click will do 50 damage? If that enemy then hits a wall, it does double the damage, meaning that it does 100. It gets better. If you have a fully charged right click, it does 100 damage, but if the enemy hits a wall, it does a whopping 250, meaning that the ability is on a form of multiplier, which as the ability charges up also increases as well. The longer you hold this ability, the harder it will be to hit your target, but you could do a lot of damage there. And finally, the ultimate. Is it a one-shot ability like the leak said it would be? Unless you're a tank, yes. If you can hit a target right in the epicenter of your guide with your ultimate, you do a whopping 300 damage. And much like the charge ability, the further out of the sort of outer rim of the guide you go, the less damage it does. So if you manage to hit them sort of on the rim of the inner outer circles, you do more damage than say on the real outer rim of the guide. So just bear that in mind as well. It's a very strong ultimate. It's pretty fun to use. I can imagine the grav slams coming in. Incredibly useful. But real quick, does Doomfist have a future in the meta currently? Is he going to be picked up? I think regardless of whether he's going to be good in competitive scene, we're going to see a lot of him because he's incredibly fun to play. His playstyle is so fluid. He combos well with his own abilities. I can't wait to see him combo with other heroes as well, such as Reinhardt, getting nano boosted, as I said, grav. All of these abilities are going to be so much fun to play with Doomfist, but I do think that he has some form of future in the high competitive tiers just because of how fluid and mobile this hero is, and he is a dive hero, which is a shame because we want to move away from that meta, but don't be surprised if we see some other major changes coming in very soon. But that's it for this time. Let me know what you think of Doomfist, whether you've had the pleasure to play him yourself, and until next time, take care. We'll see you then.